Hi there, I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark, and we're so glad that you're joining us today for The Honest Talk.
We're excited to be bringing you conversations with some of North America's most inspiring women, and we are thrilled to be partnering with RBC as we do so.
This podcast is about leaving behind the talking points and diving into the real, authentic, and unique personal stories of our guests. Stories which we hope might influence or inspire your own journeys.
So let's get right to it. Catherine, today's guest is the kind of woman who doesn't just break glass ceilings, she crushes them under her combat boots. Lieutenant General Lise Bourgon is a trailblazer in uniform, and she's one of the highest ranking women in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Yep, it is so true. General Bourgon is really a true pioneer, and her career is a testament to discipline, but also to resilience and frankly to the power of purposeful leadership. She has literally spent her life breaking barriers and opening doors for the next generation of women in service. Women in service, but also beyond that, in society in general, from my perspective. And it's just such an honor to welcome her to the Honest Talk podcast. General Lise Bourgon, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Catherine. It's a pleasure for me to be with you too.
I want to start at the beginning because it's not a natural career, I think, for a lot of young women to say, you know what, I'm going to join the military. So what inspired you to join the military? Especially at a time when you probably didn't see a lot of women in senior roles.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Well, I joined the military because I wanted to go to university, and my parents would not have been able to afford to send me to university. So when I did my research, there was something about Le Collège Militaire Royal de Saint-Jean, which was a military university where you could attend. Go there, get a degree, get paid while you're doing a degree, and do obligatory service after, and then you could quit. So that was my intent. I had no family in the military. I had no desire to serve in the military, but went to military college, got my degree, and became a pilot. And, after that, fell in love with what I was doing. And 38 years later, this is where we are.
General, was there a point in time when you fell in love with the military, or when you realized this is not, 5 years I need to give back to pay for my school? This is a career in a public service?
Yeah, it's interesting. I ended up going Seekings, and I'm sure you're going to ask all the question about that. And really, when I sailed on a ship flying the Seeking is really the time that I fell in love with my occupation. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is not going to be that bad. And I decided to keep my door open and go from posting to posting. And when I would have had enough, I would have quit. And it never happened. So it has been an awesome career.
What about becoming a pilot? Because that seems like it came kind of out of left field too. You hadn't grown up thinking, I'm going to join the military. And therefore, you probably also hadn't grown up thinking, I'm going to become a pilot. So how did that all happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I joined at in the time where they were opening all the occupation for women. So, of course, they wanted to have as many women trialing for pilots. So, pilot was my third choice. My first choice was military police. My second choice was logistic. And they said, what about pilot? And I'm like, okay, we'll give it a try. And I think that's the only reason I actually became a pilot, because I didn't care that much, actually. I thought that flying was too many rules, and that's why I became a helicopter pilot, because there's less rule flying helicopters than there is flying fixed wing. And I was not nervous, I was not stressed. Going through training really helped me. Like, I had friends who grew up wanted to be pilots, but very, very stressful, and they just didn't make it because of the stress. I didn't have that stress.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, que sera. If I make it, great. If not, then I'll become an MP or logistic. And it worked out for me. And it was, again, sometimes, the Garth Brooks song where they say God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayer. Well, I think that worked out for me.
As well, I thought maybe you were going with, sorry, Jen. I thought maybe you were going with, I've got friends in low places.
Wait, I'm good. Good. Oh, there's another quote. How's that?
Wow. How do you say you became a pilot and, you didn't really like the rules. How do you kind of circle that square of not really liking rules, but being in a very regimented profession where you do need to follow rules? Or were you always kind of
Yeah.
breaking those rules?
Well, maybe I was breaking a few rules, but not the very important one. But it's just about the flying, when,
Yeah.
especially in the military environment, we were learning and we had to fly at like 1,200 feet and 70 knots. And it was a blue sky. And I'm like, come on, it's a blue sky. Like, who cares? But that's the training environment. And helicopters, by their nature, you can land anywhere you want. And we fly mostly visual flight rules, so not as rules oriented, so a bit more freedom. So I think that's what attracted me to the helicopter field.
So I want to talk about the fact that early in your career, you faced issues as a female pilot, issues like flight suits that didn't quite fit, other ways that you had to adapt in situations because you were female. Although I remember watching a clip of you talking about how the Sea King for a helicopter that was designed a long time ago allowed you to move the seat forward, maybe even the pedals as well, so that you and a small frame could fit. But how did those types of situations make you feel when you had to adapt because of your size and your gender? How did you cope with that?
Yeah, well, flexibility, sense of humor. Again, when you go back to the years that I joined the military, the military was designed by men for men. So the first, my God, 30 years of my life, you had to adjust because it was never designed for us, women, and we had to use creativity. Trying, and you watch the video on the Sea King, trying to go to washroom is impossible, the uniform that would barely fit. But I think coping, in the early days, I kind of denied a bit of the fact that I was a woman. So I never referred to myself as a woman. I was not a woman. I was not a man. I was just me. And that's kind
Right.
of how most of us had to cope in the early years of our career.
You've reached one of the highest ranks in the Canadian Armed Forces. When was the moment that you realized that your path might lead there?
I'm not sure there was ever a time that we actually knew. We had a bit of a leadership crisis in 2021 where, it was a turning moment for the Canadian Armed Forces in inclusion and diversity. And I think that was really the moment where, the higher leadership of the military looked around and say, okay, who doesn't look like us? And let's bring them in because clearly we need to change and we need to become more inclusive. So I think that was my opportunity here to become a 3-star and to work on inclusion.
Have you found that to be a difficult task? Because you did have a crisis, a fairly public crisis, but the whole world was also dealing with that conversation at about that same time. And you also have the background of having existed and having had to adapt within this career for your entire career. So it's got to be tricky, but on the other hand, what better person to be able to lead this conversation than someone who's been through it themselves in so many ways? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And as in 2021, I also had the opportunity to go to Queens at the Center for International Defense and Policy, where I did 1 year of research on inclusion. And in my research, I really look at the Canadian Armed Forces and using my career and my own lived experience and trying to look at the gaps, okay? The gaps that existed into inclusion and try to come with a plan of saying, okay, where are the gaps? How can we make a difference? And of course, crisis happened, got a phone call, say, hey, we need you in Ottawa. And I had a really good discussion with the chief of defense staff, and I'm like, okay, if you want me back in Ottawa, I want to be in chief military personnel, because that is where I think from a woman I could make the biggest impact in changing our policies for inclusion. So he said yes. So I ended up as the deputy commander and chief military personnel, and I came in with a long list of what needed to change to make it inclusive, because of course women were integrated in the early 80s, but there's a difference between integration and inclusion. And when I came back to Ottawa, my goal was really to work in inclusion versus integration, so that we could be who we are in uniform as women, as mothers, as wives, bring our own self to work, which is a huge difference. So that's kind of what I brought with me when I arrived in Ottawa in 2021.
Is there one change that you identified and that you led that you are the most proud of?
Well, I think there's a gazillion. I was also the champion for women in the Canadian Armed Forces, and when I arrived, it was many layers, like health
Yeah.
services, it was clothing, it was our human resource policies, it was about daycare, it was about succession planning. How do we assess people? Because they were still, systemic barriers and differences. So we really worked on that for 4 years. We have a new a women's health, where we're really looking at the needs of women to make sure that we serve women's. We also, we changed the uniform a little bit on the dress policy, where it applies for everyone, but less restrictive a little bit. Maternity, all kinds of change that I'm super proud that it's making a big difference.
And we have a female chief of defense staff too. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
step too.
Indeed, because
Yeah.
if you can show to all the women out there that it's possible, and General Carignan is an exceptional person, but she's also a woman, and fundamentally, like I would call myself average, but anyone could go ahead and give it a try.
Can we talk to you about, you've talked about how some of the policies have shifted for women. You have built a truly successful career in the military, but you have also done it as women do in other sectors as well. But you have really done it while building a family and nurturing a family. And the difference in these cases, I think, is that you had a lot of moves. A military life seems to involve a lot of upheaval for the family as well. How have you balanced their needs and your own? Because you've been successful on both fronts.
Yeah, well, I would say that I've had the great luck to have an absolutely supportive husband. Okay, I would not be where I am without his support, allowing me to be who I am right now, and really sharing in the duty and taking more than is half of the responsibility. That's for sure. Great kids that were adaptable. I mean, the flower of military kids is the dandelion for a reason, because they grow roots anywhere. So 2 great kids. And I think, my coping mechanism was, and that was hard, work-life balance is not easy. But I think for me, it was really looking at good enough versus being the best at everything, which I find that sometimes women are very hard on themselves. They need to be the best in the household, the best mothers, the best spouse, staying awake, baking a cake until 3 o'clock in the morning, etc., etc. So for me, it was like, okay, this is good enough. Don't sweat the small stuff, and really making sure that if I couldn't get the quantity of time with the family, at least I got the quality hours with them. And I think, they tell me that they didn't miss me that much. So I guess I must have done something correctly.
That's pretty amazing. What practices or beliefs have helped you stay grounded and resilient during the toughest moments in your career?
Yeah, well, I think, sleep is absolutely vital for me. I cannot sacrifice sleep because I become a human being that I don't like. Okay. I actually become a monster. So I need to ensure that I sleep at least 7 hours. So I gotta respect that. And I think that, getting up and going to the gym is essential. Having the chance to switch that brain off and doing some physical exercise is really what kept me sane and
Yeah.
resilience. And the team at work, they learned very rapidly that they protected my time until 8:30 in the morning, so I could go to the 7 o'clock class. Because by 4:30 in the afternoon, if I had done the class at 7, my spirit was still good. But if I had
Mhm.
not gone to the gym, I was not as nice as a leader. So protect your boss's time so that she can go to the gym.
I want to talk about like I love that advice. I love the advice about good enough. I love the advice about taking care of yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself. But I also would love to talk about high pressure situations because you would face all kinds of challenging moments. And we talked earlier about your decision to become a pilot, and you've flown search and rescue operations in absolutely terrible weather. You've had to land Sea King helicopters on ships that were, in the middle of a storm, mountainous waves. How do you possibly maintain clarity and composure in those types of high pressure situations? Lots of women face high pressure situations. I'm not sure they're quite like that. How do you do it?
I don't know. I guess the other choice was not surviving, and that was not the good option. So, I think again, the camaraderie, the teamwork, keeping calm and composed, believing in yourself, asking help. I don't know. I guess all of those things help me do the job. I'm sure, like, yeah. That's a hard question, and I'm not sure I'd be able to give you more than this.
You just do it. What would you tell a young Canadian woman that was considering a career in the military today?
Oh, I would say give it a shot. And we have awesome opportunities, 108 different occupation, free education, free training, exceptional way of life. The opportunities to make a difference for Canadians and also abroad. The variety of employment. That's what I love. We never keep a job for longer than 2 or 3 years. You keep changing, but it's so much fun. And I think, again, the military is way different than when I joined it in '87. I think we've
Yeah.
done some exceptional progress. And I think, like I talked about, inclusion, where we recognize and value that
Mhm.
diversity. So I would say, yeah, give it a shot. And it doesn't have to be for a life. You can do 5 years, you
Mhm.
can do 10 years, and but give it a try. And I think you're going to be surprised, but how much fun and how it's going to benefit you.
It's funny. I was a military spouse for a number of years before my husband decided to leave the military, and he was posted to Wainwright, and I was working on Bay Street in Toronto, and I decided to go work from Wainwright, and that very begrudgingly, and I kept my job, and it was actually the best 2 years of our married life before we had kids. We had so much fun. We made such a great group of friends and built a community. So it goes from the spousal side to also the employment side. Just have an open mind.
Yeah, actually, I think that's what you said is absolutely key. Keep an open mind. We
Mm.
tend to think that we know and we don't want to try something because we fear it. But if we give it a shot with honestly, 100%, and you put your heart behind it, you're going to be so surprised of how much fun and how much successful that someone can be. Yeah.
When you look back on your career, General, what do you hope that your legacy will be? Not just for the armed forces, but also for the next generation of women leaders.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's a very powerful question. I think for me, like when I talked about moving the CAF from integration to inclusion, I think the last 5 years we've done a lot in that field. And that is key for women to be serving in the military, so that they don't have to go through the same experience. My daughter joined the military. She went to military college. So yeah, she's a combat engineer in the Army, and I hope that I made her path a little bit easier, that she doesn't have to go through the same challenges as I did early on in my career. So for the CAF, I think that was it. And I think for society is really to give ourselves the chance to give it a try. I find that women, I don't know if it's something as we're raised, we tend to be scared of trialing new experience. We doubt ourselves, like women don't go for a job unless they're overqualified, because we fear to fail. So how do we change that in a society in Canada right now where, failure, it's okay. We learn so much by failing. We discover ourselves. If you do the reflection and look back and say, okay, what can I do to be successful? It's super important for us to believe in ourselves and give it a shot, the way men are giving it a shot, and be successful. So I think that would be the thing that I would beg everyone to consider. Give it a shot. You might be surprised. Yes, maybe you're going to fail, but it's okay. Gretzky said, we miss 100% of the shot that we don't take. So let's go, give it a shot.
Did you always have that relationship of failure, or was that built over time?
I think it was built over time. Like, I can't say I was, it took a while to realize that failure is okay, but it's hard to fail. And I think when we look at society right now, the way we raise our children, it's even harder for them to fail. And I think that is something that we're going to need to push to ensure that resilience in society is super important. And you just, you failed, you pick yourself up and get up again. And that's okay.
Yeah, love that message. Okay, we have some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you a better pilot or passenger?
Pilot.
Okay.
Okay, that gives us confidence. Do you prefer tea or coffee?
Coffee in the morning, but tea after 2:00 in the afternoon.
Okay. Tim Hortons or Starbucks or
Oh,
something
Tim
else?
Hortons the entire way.
Good to know. Favorite movie?
Oh, I love Disney's. So any Disney's.
This is so incongruous.
Yeah,
I love this. That's awesome. Okay, do you have a particular favorite with Disney's?
Oh my God. I think all of them. I mean, again, I went to see Lilo and Stitch with my daughter a few weeks ago. She's 24. We raised the average in that movie theater, but probably 40 years old, but it was a blast. And yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Are you reading a book right now? And if so, what is it?
Oh, it's How to Menopause. Because it's an awesome book. Tamal, I forget her last name. I would recommend to any women above the age of 35. It's exceptional, very well written. I think we don't talk enough about menopause, and we need to talk more about it. And it's an awesome book.
Love it. Okay. Any guilty streaming shows or guilty pleasures that you're watching on TV or streaming right now?
I am just about to retire right now, so finally getting to do a lot of Netflix binging, and I'm watching the Rookie series.
Oh, okay. I have had to watch that entire series myself because of my son. So I can relate to that. Jen knows that I'm a little slow on the streaming. So thank you for mentioning something that I can identify with. All right. I think that's a wrap for our rapid fires, Jen.
I think so. That was great. I was also at opening night of Lilo and Stitch, so we have that in common. General, it was a pleasure to chat with you. And, on behalf of Catherine and myself, thank you for your service to our country. And thanks for being just an incredible role model for women everywhere, regardless of whether they're in the forces or not, and the change that you've made in our society. And thank you for joining us on the Honest Talk today.
Awesome, Jennifer. Catherine, thank you very much for having me today.
Well, that's a wrap. And to our listeners across Canada and around the world, we thank you for joining us.
You can hear The Honest Talk on iTunes, Spotify, and Simplecast, brought to you by RBC. You can also get more information on stories that matter to you at our website, thehonesttalk.ca, and sign up for our weekly newsletter where you'll get fabulous stories delivered right to your inbox.
But for now, thank you for being a part of today's podcast. Stay tuned for more great conversations and stay well.